Welcome back, Leveling Up Nation. This is your success strategist, Brigham Blackham, and I am so excited
Dream new
today.
dreams.
Mhm.
I can live a life that will take my breath away. I can focus on things that I can do instead of what I
Share the
can't
love
do.
you feel, let it blossom in your smile like a city on a hill. And that was one of those songs that has come full
And to
circle.
truly inspire is to remind people who they are and eliminate their excuses. At least for me, I'm like the best way for me to eliminate their excuses is to get up out of my chair and walk across the
Welcome
stage.
back, Leveling Up Nation. This is your success strategist, Brigham Blackham, and I am so excited today. I just read Jeff Griffin's book, and it blew my mind. It was so good. It was about how the impossible is just a misnomer. Everything's possible. I'm so excited to have our conversation today. We're going to be embracing a pun. I was like, this is so good. Charitable stories, and we've got some things that you definitely want to listen to the entire episode because we're going to hit on what chair means, and we're going to have a little bit of fun along the way, sharing some great stories. And one of the things you need to know about Jeff, though, I met him a couple weeks ago at the E3 conference. Such an amazing storyteller, such an amazing speaker. He has an array of background, and we're going to talk about what happens if you have all these dreams, these hopes, and then they're shattered in a moment. How do you recapture those hopes and dreams, and what do we do with some of the challenges that we have moving forward? So really grateful to have him on today. So excited for you to be here. Welcome, Jeff, to the call. How you doing today?
Doing well, doing fantastic. Brigham, thank you so much for allowing me to, share the stage with you.
Absolutely. What a pleasure. I am so stoked because having a great speaker like yourself that's really dialed in their message and created frameworks that have positively impacted so many lives, like it's a pleasure to be in the same stage with you as well. So thank you.
Awesome. You betcha. I'm looking forward to this conversation and this short time that we have with each other. My son taught me a very valuable lesson when he was like 2 years old. He's like, Dad, there's short hours and long hours. And I'm like, you're only two? And he blew my mind. I'm like, I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, that's absolutely true. Each hour is 60 minutes, but there are short hours and there are long hours. And so I wanted to know what a long hour was for a 2-year-old. And without hesitating, he's like, church.
Church, church is a long hour. I get that.
And I'm like, okay, absolutely. I can see that. Absolutely. You can't talk. You got to sit still. It is hell for a 2-year-old boy. Absolutely. And so I'm like, all right, well, what's a short hour? And he's like, Pokemon. And I'm
Pokemon.
like,
Okay.
okay. So Brigham, what I'm saying is, this is going to be a short hour. I can tell already.
Absolutely. And we're going to have a blast doing it because when you're having fun, man, those hours get shorter and shorter. So thank you for being here. Now, we have a framework here that we're going to be playing off of for our topics, charitable stories. Now, why did I say this? Would you mind, Jeff, telling a little bit about how you ended up in a wheelchair? Because I know you weave that into everything that you do, but you haven't let that stop you to be an amazing Olympian, to be an amazing speaker, an amazing husband, amazing father. Tell us your origin story, and then we're going to dive right into these.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And by the way, what your listeners can't see because they're just listening
Mhm.
is that, as you mentioned, I am in a wheelchair, and what your viewers can't see is that I'm in a wheelchair. I'm sitting down, and you can't tell, but what I speak all over the world, and you had an opportunity to hear me speak, and when I come rolling out on stage, I address the elephant in the room about how good looking I am.
Yeah,
and
sexy, rare.
I know, I'm telling you, but no, the elephant is I went from 6'1" to 4'7", and I see things different. And I've learned that different isn't always better, but better is always different. And if we want to make things better, we're going to have to think different. And what's amazing is the chair has allowed me to think different because my physicality, my identity was all wrapped up in my physicality. And I as a little kid, I dreamt about playing football in college, to play football on the big stage. I grew up in northern Utah, Cache Valley. Went and watched the Utah State Aggies play, and they ran the ball and they lost all the time. And I was like, this is not very inspiring. And for me, I wanted to go play at BYU, at the school down south. The irony is they breed them to hate them up there in Cache Valley. You're like, you're not supposed to like the Cougars, but I was a receiver, they were a passing school, and it was like a match made in heaven in my mind. I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do. And the song that sang to my soul was to play football in college. And
that's amazing.
And so, you know, went and played there at the college, and had a, you know, got to taste the sweetness of success and experience what it would be like to be on the field, to be on the first team instead of the scrub team, and just on the sideline. And I tasted the sweetness of success. I chased down my dreams, and I'm like, yes, and I captured it. And fortunately for me, or unfortunately, I know I can honestly say, fortunately for me, in between seasons, I was had a construction accident, which paralyzed from the waist down, and my dreams of playing football came crashing down. Riding a motorcycle with a lady on back came crashing down as well. And I can honestly say that I'm grateful to be in a wheelchair, and my wheelchair has allowed me to play on the world stage, not just the big stage, but the world stage. And I've been able to take my mess and turn it into a message, and I've been able to pick up the pieces and dream new dreams. And you know, I live a life that takes my breath away, and most people are barely breathing and calling it a life. And I'm like, really, you know, you got to flip the switch, reframe things, and start focusing on some things. And so the chair has taken me all over the world. I've been able to play in the Paralympics. I've received I've earned 2 Guinness World Records because of my chair. I've been invited to the wheelchair NBA All-Star event that kicks off, you know, the regular NBA festivities. Awesome. And 4 of those 8 times, I was the MVP of the basketball tournament. And my most amazing accomplishment is that I was able to catch my wife's attention because I was in a chair, not because of the chair, but she's like, why is this guy so happy and so positive, and he's stuck in a chair? But yeah, the chair is not my identity.
Yeah.
But I've learned some things along this journey that has helped me and others. And really, Brigham, the elephant in the room is that, you know, I may be physically paralyzed, but most of us, if not all of us, are paralyzed from the demons of doubt, fear, and complacency.
Bars. So good. But one of the things I really want to dive in here and just acknowledge is you haven't let that chair define you. You've defined your life and designed it in such a way that you can live your dreams out loud. So inspiring. You're wheeling and dealing, and I think that's so cool, man. So great. Now, one of the things that we want to start off with this chair example, right? Charitable stories is the first one is to care, right? You got to chair, but you got to care. So let's dive in. What is a way that you've been able to show care, been able to have care given to you when maybe it didn't feel comfortable? Because I know, especially in the beginning, when you're paralyzed, there's things that you have to have nurses do that you're like, I never thought I would have to go through that. Let's go there. What does care mean to you?
Yeah, in fact, I had a ton of nurses and medical experts that were very charitable. Others that were cold, but majority of them there were very warm and charitable. And it's amazing. You know, I learned a lesson before I got hurt in football, of all places, about charity and charitable service and just service in general. You know, I've learned that most men and women of history, like the good ones, most men and women of history are men of service. And, you know, one of those individuals was my therapist. Yeah. And, you know, after I got hurt, my dreams of playing football was shattered and was over. And I'm like, okay, now what? And I entered that sauna of self-pity and was walling around that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity. And I'm like, now what? I can't do anything. I can't even roll over. Every 2 hours. The nurse had to come in and take care of me. I couldn't even put on my clothes by myself at first. And then when I was able to, it took me an hour to do so. And then just to transfer out of my bed into a chair, it took 30 minutes with the aid of 2 nurses. And I even had to get some help using the restroom, which was the most humiliating thing in the world. But things that used to take me seconds were taking me minutes, if not hours. And so I was just in this tailspin of sorrow and self-pity. And I entered that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity and was walling around there. And it wasn't until I exited that sauna that I realized that, you know what, I can dream new dreams. I can live a life that will take my breath away. I can focus on things that I can do instead of what I can't do. And so once I had that mind shift and I was able to flip the switch and reframe, this challenge into an opportunity, there's some people that I read that I meet, they're like, Griff, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to be in a chair. And I'm like, I have just won. I have just won. When people are like, I want to be just like you. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. I will trade the wheelchair and everything else that goes with it, for your life, because I know that the chair isn't the thing. But the reason why I share this story with you is because I told the doctor my dreams, because I'm like, I got new dreams. I'm like, okay, I know that they say I'm never going to walk again. 0% chance of ever walking, standing, moving my legs again. 0% chance of having kids. Like that's the first function to go, last to come back. Some of the experts, Brigham, told me that I never get married, not because of my wheelchair, but just because of who I am. And, my wife and I are going to celebrate 28 years. And we have 4 beautiful biological kids. And, I've learned to be able to focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do. And I've been able to accomplish some things that most able-bodied men haven't been able to do in their lifetime right now. But the reason why I share this with you is because I learned a valuable lesson about this concept of, every great man and woman of history is a man of service. Once I received that dream, after the doctor laughed in my face and said, Griff, don't get your hopes up. You'll never walk and never move your legs again. The therapist came in. She's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to walk again. I want to stand. She's like, let's go. And so half an hour it took me to get out of my bed into the wheelchair, rolled down to the therapy room. She put on some Forrest Gump legs, my braces, and she rolled me to the parallel bars. And she's like, okay, stand up. And so with my lack of strength and her efforts, we got into a standing position in about 5 minutes. It took us 5 minutes to get into that standing position. When I let go of the parallel bars, I'd fall over. And I'd hurry and grab on. And so I went from 1 second to 10 seconds to 30 seconds to a minute. And I'm like, hey, I'm improving. And I went back to the doctor and I'm like, hey, doc, I'm improving. I'm going to stand. I'm going to walk again someday. And he's like, Griff, don't get your hopes up. It's impossible. And going back to the parallel bars, this therapist, she's like, let's go, Griff, walk. And at the end of the parallel bars was a mirror. And I'm like, okay, I think I can. I know this. I learned this as a kid reading that Thomas the Train. I think I can. And then boom, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I know I can. Oh, I thought I could because I wasn't moving. I wasn't even able to drag my feet. There was zero movement whatsoever. And then another, shift of the mind was, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I kept at it, because I started to move down those parallel bars. And as I was moving down the parallel bars inch by inch, and I've learned that inch by inch is a cinch, Brigham, but yard by yard is hard. So often we try to consume everything all at once. And so here I am moving down the parallel bars, and I'm thinking it's me. And I look down, and here's my therapist. She's grabbing my leg. She's lifting it up. She's pulling it forward. She's placing it down. She's grabbing my leg. She's lifting it up. She's pulling it forward. She's placing it down. She did that the whole way to the end of the parallel bars. By the time I'm done, I'm sweating. She's sweating. Sorry, she's glistening.
She's glistening. Yes, they don't sweat. I get that.
She is glistening. And I collapsed in my chair, and I'm like, maybe I don't want to do this. But I remember that simple act of kindness, that charitable act from this therapist. I know it was her job, but first of all, she believed in my dream, and she's like, let's go. Instead of looking at all the reasons why we couldn't do this, she's like, let's look at all the reasons why we can. Put on some braces, did some other things. She started to move my legs and do everything, and was modeling what was happening. And because of that kind act of service, it was a little kernel of hope that's been with me the rest of my life. It's been 30 plus years. And Brigham, in 2019, me and 20 men and young boys climbed Mount Ben Lomond. And I took every step to the top of the mountain.
Wow. That's phenomenal. I've climbed that mountain. That is tough. It is a tough mountain to climb. Whether you're able-bodied completely or not, that is a tough climb. So very impressive. So amazing. One of the things that popped out to that story that I wanted to drill down on was who do you listen to? Some people will say, oh, you have hope. Well, let me tell you why that's stupid. And you're like, come on, doc, I'm not going to listen to that. But that one person that believed in you and instilled that hope, it made all the difference. And for us, that second topic that we're going to hit today is hope. Went perfect. So first is care. The second is hope. What's another way that you've been able to not just take hope from other people, but to give hope? I think that's something that is inspiring in your book and something you do over and over as a speaker. How do you give hope?
Yeah. So, let's define what hope is.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, if you've ever read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, great book. I'd recommend it. Of course, after reading I'm Possible by the author, Jeff Griffin. Shameless plug. No, I'm just kidding. But I love her book. It was great. And she's talking about how these cadets at West Point Academy not just got to the academy, because it's an ordeal just to get there. You got to have, congressional leadership write you a letter, and you got to have all these grades, and you got to get there. And then what happens is the majority of them drop out because it's so difficult. And she was able to determine that the common thread of those cadets that made it through West Point Academy was grit. And she said that gritty people are hopeful people. And I love her book, but I think Angela has this upside down. She has this concept upside down. She says that gritty people are hopeful people, but I think hopeful people are gritty people. And for me, hope is the ability to reach out to the future and grab onto your dreams and bring it back to the present in spite of your past, in spite of your setbacks, in spite of your failures, in spite of those hard times. And so many of us think that, that failure is the opposite of success. We've been taught that the opposite of success is failure. And I've never met anybody who has not failed their way to success. Every successful person that I know has failed multiple times. Yeah. And so what we need to do is we need to give ourselves permission to fail, because failures at first are triumphs at last, as long as we just don't quit. And I think the opposite of success is to not even try and to give up. But in order for us to even get going and to take that first step, is we've got to have hope. We've got to have hope into the future, and the future is unknown. We can place doubt or we can place faith in the unknown. And hope is a key element of that. And so, again, most of us don't know how to identify our dreams. Most of us don't know what we want. There's the greats are on stage saying, hey, you got to know your why. You got to know your dream. You got to have your vision, but they don't teach you how to do that. And Brigham, we have a tool and a technique that helps people identify their dream, identify their why, identify that future, that beautiful future that just, causes their heart to beat. And they begin to listen to that song inside their soul again. And, it's beautiful. And so hope is the ability to reach out to the future and grab onto your dreams. And so how do you give hope? Well, first of all, you have to find it yourself. You've got to give your heart a reason to beat. You got to be that light that Jesus tells us to be. He's like, hey, listen, be the light that I've given you. Be the light. And so, don't hide it under a bushel, but put it on the top of the hill that everyone can see. And so let your light shine. Just be that beacon of hope. And it's amazing that a small little flicker of light, what it can do to a dark room, what it can do to a dark community, what it can do to a dark nation. And so again, don't dim your light to meet everyone else's expectations. Just let your light shine.
Beautiful. My mom, she actually wrote me a song that I sang for my mission farewell. And the line was, let your light so shine, share the love you feel, let it blossom in your smile like a city on a hill. And that was one of those songs that has come full circle multiple times for me. If we set that expectation that we're going to be the very best versions of ourselves and we allow our light to shine, we give other people permission to light their light and to shine bright as possible. So thank you for that. I think one of the things that popped up into my head as well, I'm a BYU guy, you're a BYU guy. One of our slogans there is go forth and serve. That's what you're doing. You're showing that whatever is holding you back in your life, don't let it. you can serve in some way, in some capacity with the resources that you have, and be resourceful. I'm just loving what you're sharing. This next topic, I think, is one that you can speak to in a very unique way. It's about access. If we're going to be talking about charitable service and charitable stories, sometimes you have to prioritize access for people. And when you get into a wheelchair, there's some things that are really difficult to access. Maybe there's not a ramp there. Maybe because there's only stairs, you have to ask for help. I would love to hear, what are ways you've been able to gain access to things that you thought maybe originally were impossible? Kind of like your Ben Lomond example. Like, oh man, I didn't know I was able to access that level of grit. But what are some of those ways you've taken access to the next level that a lot of times people in wheelchairs maybe aren't willing to ask for the help, or aren't willing to go that extra mile to see how they can gain access to the rooms? So let's hear your story, and what does access mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I want to answer that question by just kind of putting a little cherry on the top of what we've been talking already. And as I mentioned before, the inch by inch is a cinch, but yard by yard is hard. So walk that mile with a smile.
Yeah.
And you said, like, hey, you know what can we give? You know what? A smile is a free gift. It is a simple thing. And I don't know if you've ever been with people whose smiles light up the room. And I love to tell people, I'm like, you know what? You have a beautiful smile. And by the way, you smile with your eyes. I don't know if you've met those people that their eyes are what really lights up, and it lights up you, and it lights up your energy. And it's like, man, this is amazing. I love this. And so again, a smile is just a crooked line that sets things straight. And it's a free, simple gift that everyone can give. You know, I was in Sweden. I was in Estonia this time, and I was rolling down the sidewalk, and the Europeans don't smile. They're right next to Russia, and they've grown up like, you know, you don't smile. And so I'm rolling down the street. They're seeing this guy in a wheelchair. And I'm like, first of all, they're like, I don't ever see people in wheelchairs. And then I'm smiling and I'm saying hi to them. And so it's like, you know how you come onto a wreck and you cannot not look away. You're like, oh, I don't want to look, but I have to look. And these people are looking at me like, oh my gosh, you're too much. I don't want to have eye contact with you, but I cannot not look away. And so, you know, they double look a little bit, and you're like, oh, okay, what's going on here? And so again, it's just, you know, you talk about access, and sometimes we guard our hearts, and we don't allow people to have access to our hearts. But there's never going to be a connection. There's never going to be change. There's never going to be transformation unless there's a heart to heart connection. And so, you know, we've got to let down those walls, let down our guards, and allow others to serve us, and allow ourselves to serve others. And, you know, one of my struggles was going from an able-bodied person to a disabled body person, and being in a wheelchair. I wanted to make sure that people didn't see my chair, but saw me. And so I'm like, I'm not disabled. I'm just a person. You know, I'm not, you know, this wheelchair guy. I'm just a guy who's disabled, who can't walk, happens to be in a chair. And that's not my identity. And so when people are like, hey, can I get the door for you? I'm like, no, I got this. I didn't want people to think that I was disabled. I'm like, no, I'm handy capable. I'm handy capable. I'm not handicapped. I'm handy capable. And so somebody told me like, Griff, you're not allowing these people to serve you. You're not giving them access to you. You're not allowing them to, you know, to do something that they want to do. You know, you're rejecting their invitation. And so I'm like, I thought about it. I'm like, okay. So the next, you know, I came rolling up to this building on campus, and this young man on campus said, hey, can I get the door for you? And I was about to say, no, I got this, but I'm like, no, I'm going to swallow my pride. I'm like, sure. Yeah, you can get the door for me. So he turns to the button on the wall, clicks it, and this door slowly opens up. And I'm looking at him like, do you think I'm that disabled that I can't even push the handicap button? But awesome. You know, that one was like, oh, it was like, bam, you know, a knife to the heart, to my ego. And it was like, but I'm like, no, even though there'll be times where we open our hearts up and then we get stabs, it's, you know, it's so important to continue to be vulnerable, continue to give that love, continue to be authentic, continue to, because love is the answer. It really is. Love is the guide of wisdom. And wisdom is so in depth, and it's such a topic that we could spend 2 or 3 hours on.
Oh goodness, yeah.
But access. And so absolutely be accessible. Yourself, be accessible. You're not too good for others. You do have enough time. You can find some time, and be accessible for others, and to give.
So good. Access is something that I think anytime you are not able to gain access to someone, you realize how important it is. You're not able to go do something that you're finally like, oh, I see why this is so important to be open. I talk about this open hand principle often in my coaching. It's the idea of if you don't have an open hand, you're inaccessible. It's like almost having your fist in a monkey trap. As soon as you have your hand open, you can give and you can take. But if you don't have that open hand, there's no exchange that's going to happen. So this is that Benjamin Franklin principle. Have you guys ever heard of that? You heard this one before?
I don't know. Tell me.
Okay,
I've heard a lot of Benjamin Franklin isms.
Oh, this is one that I first heard from my buddy Rob Sperry, but he shared this, that when Benjamin Franklin was struggling to really be friends with people because he was kind of extremely brilliant and he just was always butting heads and being kind of rude to his enemies, he went and he asked somebody for help. Is specifically someone that was not on good terms with him, diametrically opposed in their viewpoints. And because he asked for help and he was willing to go to him and say, hey, I really appreciate your opinion on things. We don't always see eye to eye, but I would love to get some help. As soon as he got help, he forged a relationship, because there is a zone of agreement with any two people. Even if you are completely on opposite sides, there are some things that you can agree on. And when you go forth and serve somebody, you have that open hand, you're able to receive and to give. And it's so good. So one of the things that I'd love to tap into, I'm sure you've got lots of ideas that are popping in, is in charitable, this idea of how to inspire. What does it take to not just say something that's motivational, but to inspire someone to action, to do something with their life, to have a call to action that changes their life? Because a lot of speakers will go on, they'll do this rah speech, get everybody excited, and then nothing happens. I don't feel like that's the way you work, though. You're someone that inspires, and then they start to do the work and they perspire and they start getting into action. So tell me, how do you do that? What have you done as a speaker to draw out the best in people and to inspire them?
Yeah. And I love that. I love that question. And, I always ask the question, are you barely breathing and calling a life, or are you living a life that takes your breath away? And the only way to inspire is to live a life that takes your breath away. And the only way to do that is to know your why, to understand your dream, to understand your destination, where you're going. And you're going to move heaven and earth to get there. They say that if you can teach men and women to understand the why, they'll move heaven and earth to get it. And we don't do a good enough job on teaching people the why and the what, their dream, and so many of us have forgotten our greatness. And we all have this royal DNA inside of us. We come from royalty. We have the ability to achieve our dreams and desires because we come from infinite intelligence. We come from God, who has given us all. And so we forget that. We forget our true identity. We forget who we were created in the image of, and we forget to dream. We forget to dream like we did when we were a little kid. And so to really inspire anybody, you can tell people all you want, you can yell at them and you can scream at them, and that will only maybe work for a second. But I don't know if you noticed that, but if you yell and scream, all you're doing is just, it's the grind. You hear about the grind, and people are being dragged to the destination. But once you teach them who they are, and help them identify what their dream is on a subconscious level and on a molecular level, what happens here is it's like a light, to a fly that it's just beaconed. We're beaconed to it, and we're just drawn. And so instead of being dragged, we're drawn, and so we do the efforts, and we find the fuel to refuel the fire of desire within us. And so again, it's going back to understanding and knowing our why, and understanding the dream, the vision, and what's going on there. And so, and to truly inspire is to remind people who they are and eliminate their excuses. At least for me, I'm like, the best way for me to eliminate their excuses is to get up out of my chair and walk across the stage. And I'm getting stronger and stronger every time I do it. But at the beginning, I couldn't do it. All I could do was stand up, and I'd take a step and fall down. But just demonstrating and modeling the fact that, listen, hey, it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fall down, as long as you get back up, dust yourself off, and dream your dreams.
Beautiful. That's inspiring to me. So check mark on that one. But inspiration for me is not just, hey, here's what I've learned. It's here's what I'm doing. Being an example. Finding people that are doing what you want and then emulating them. I like to think of these as M&Ms. You probably have heard this by Darren Hardy. You want to model and mimic those people that inspire you. Jeff, you inspire me. I'm modeling a lot of things I do now based on what you say. Anytime you have a speaker that has a concept that inspires you, that takes you to that next level of understanding, you can embrace those ideas and say, I'm going to try this on us, almost like you're trying on a pair of pants. You have to do it for a while before you realize whether they're a good fit. One of the concepts that I think is amazing in your book is this idea of possibilities. I actually used that, use your non-dominant hand to write out this quote. And my lighting is not great, but the idea is what you persist in doing, if you consistently do it, will eventually get easier. Not that the nature of the thing gets easier, but that your power to do it increases. That was Ralph Waldo Emerson-ish, because I didn't quite get all the words.
That was pretty amazing. That was pretty amazing. I'm like, yeah, 100%. That which we persist in doing becomes easier for us to do, period.
Done. Because we're persistently doing it. And as we're consistently doing this, when you make that conscious choice to say, this is who I am because this is what I do, it will impact. My coach, Greg Kimball, he says, you have to be and you have to do. It's not be and then do. Be and do. It's the power is in the and. And then as you do that, you will eventually have what you want because you are serving people and helping them get what they want. So this last concept, I think, is extremely rare in great speakers, but you have it in spades. How do you take your completely unique experiences and make them so that nobody else has them? Deliver them and package them in such a way that people are like, that's who Jeff Griffin is. This is the rarity. This is the rare coin idea that you can't get this anywhere else. Let's talk about maybe your possibility principle and also how rare it is to find someone that is like you, living your dreams out loud.
Well, first of all, thank you for calling me rare. Some people may call me antique-ish.
Antique? Okay. This is why language matters, right? It's so important.
Absolutely. Rare is different than antique. A grandpa, who's that old grandpa guy? But the rare in chair is, I always say, well, I always ask permission at the very, very beginning to share a personal story that pertains to the audience. Because this story that I share, is the hero's journey in a nutshell, and we all experience that. And so my story is, and every time I tell a story, what I want to do is I want to tell the story as if it pertains to that individual, that they are going through it. And so again, I just keep the listener in mind, because this story isn't about me, and your story isn't about you. It's, as we're talking about, it's to give light to the next generation, is to give hope to the next generation, is to show them the path that that we've traveled and that they can travel down as well. And so it's important to really understand that, I'm not up there to look good myself. I'm not up there to shine light on myself. I'm up there to give perspective, to allow them to go introspective on themselves, to go inward and to ask those questions, because great questions lead to great discovery. And if we can get our listeners to ask questions, they're going to find the answers. I had an experience one time where I thought I knew everything, and I was greatly humbled. And not just from the wheelchair, but I was greatly humbled and I had the question, I had the thought that, if I don't ask the questions, if I think I have all the answers, I'll never ask the question. And if I don't ask the question, then I'll never receive the answer. And so I believe that's where it's very, very rare for individuals to do, is to slow down enough to listen and to ask the questions, because you're going to find the answers once you do.
Beautiful. You have to slow down enough to see where are those gaps. I love this idea of the gap and the gain. I feel like anytime you notice that there's a gap, especially in things like your speaking or in your language learning, it's when you identify the gap, it's how you respond to the gap. Am I focusing on, hey, I am not at this place where I want to be? Or am I saying, look how far I've come. This is where I'm at. So I've learned a handful of different languages. I speak Mandarin, I speak Spanish, and working on French and ASL. It's not about how much you know. It's about what do you do with what you do know. Every single one of us have these new stages of our life. We have these opportunities that come and they go. But when we look at the resources that we have, we get to choose what we're going to do in those moments. Every time I learn a new word, it's like, how am I going to use this? How can I make this be beneficial for somebody else? You shared some really beautiful ideas. This idea of having great questions are the things that allow you to have great discoveries. Do you have a moment in your life where you're like, this was a question that opened up tons of possibilities for you? You talk about this possibility principle. What was a question that you're like, this is a great question, opened up possibilities for you?
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, to your listeners who are still here, if you'd like access to that possibility principle, if you go to my website at griffinmotivation.com, Griffin, and go to the shop section, you can download the possibility principle for free if you put in the access code P2. That's just the letter P and the number 2. So if you put in that access code P2, it will be free. And it's a downloadable PDF, and it sits at the footings of the foundation. The 3Ds, desire, dream, and do, sit at the foundation of every problem that we are faced with. The problem is the problem. The problem is you.
Yep.
And
problem is definitely always us.
and the problem is me. And so really, but the good news is the solution is you too. The solution is us, especially if we flip the switch and reframe things and look at things as, on what we can do, so what we can't do, and what's possible instead of what's impossible. And if you're not optimistic, that's okay. You can work on that. I wasn't the most optimistic person in the world, but I've worked on it and I enjoy it. I feel better. It's a different energy. It's a different frequency. And I like this. I like this perspective. I like this answer, but some benefits that will come from the possibility principle of having it and doing that little exercise that you talked about by writing, that quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson with your non-dominant hand to remind you of how you developed and learned the things that you have right now. But what got you here won't get you there by continuing to do the same things that you've done in the past. You're going to have to continue to recreate and discover and to do some new things. And you've got to do those things that helped you get here a little bit better to get you there, and just be, consistently consistent and persistent in that journey. And so, the possibility principle is such a beautiful concept and a beautiful thing that I created based off of this quote. And it's a simple principle. It's just not easy to implement. It's like the Navy SEALs, like, Griff, it's simple to be a Navy SEAL. It's just not easy. And I'm like, okay, this possibility principle, it is simple. It's just not easy because you have to be persistent and you have to be consistent, and you have to do the things that you need to do. And one of those things is to, spend 10 minutes at least a day developing the thoughts and the mindsets and those emotions that are going to change your life. And so, and then that's going to develop a desire that matches up with your dreams, and the floodgates of imagination are going to open up. It's going to help you identify what success is and what failure is. It's going to help you identify that it's okay to be uncomfortable. So be comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's in the struggle that we find the strength, and it's the process that helps us progress, not the promises. And it teaches us what hope is. It reminds us of what hope is. And then we get to go and chase down our dreams inch by inch. Some people can like take leaps and bounds, and others try to do the leaps and bounds and they get tired and exhausted and they quit and they give up. But if you're consistently consistent and you're persistent in this dream of yours, you'll eventually get there. And again, so, we try to just consume everything at once, but just take it a little bit at a time. And what's going to happen here is in these 10 minutes is going to add up to, it's going to increase to 20 minutes, to 30 minutes, to where you're going to be able to meditate and to slow down and to listen. And I love what we find in Psalms, where it says, "Be still and know that I am." We're so busy. This trend for more noise, more distraction is exactly what the adversary wants. He wants to distract us, to keep us, to cause us to forget on who we really are. And so be still and you will know who you are.
That's so good. One of the things that came to mind was a quote that I actually came up with a little while ago, and I actually literally have it on my desk. This idea of uwe, without a cause to move. You think about, this is what stillness means. If you're really embracing stillness, it's, I don't sit without a cause. It's, I don't go a day without cause to pause. When you are in your stillness, a lot of times it's, people are thinking, oh, I have to do this for this specific reason. You can actually pause and just be. We're a human being, not a human doing. And it comes down to, are we willing to disconnect at times? Are we willing to disconnect from other things so we can connect with our Savior? I think that is a huge value to what you brought up. Be still. Find the meditative moments and find ways that you don't have to be in a rush. There's this idea in Mandarin of being tongmang. It's not just busy. It's like so busy that you almost die on the inside. Mang is, on one side, it is death, and the other side is a heart. You think about the value of doing something intentionally, having stillness. If you aren't embracing the difficulty, then sometimes we aren't living up to our potential. And sometimes the difficult thing for us is to stop and to be still. It's pretty easy to go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, but we always have our stress. But when you say, you know what, I'm going to just be here and just be for a moment, sometimes that's the hard thing to do. But as we do it, man, I absolutely agree. Finding that stillness, it makes a huge difference.
Right.
I usually go ahead.
Now, I want you to finish your thought here, but I would love I'd love to hear some responses on, there's some people who find the silence deafening because they're not used to it. And I see these great characters of history when, they were the protagonist before, or the antagonist, whoever the bad guy is. Who's the bad guy? The antagonist?
The antagonist, yeah.
The antagonist, right? They were the antagonist before, but then they were forced to sit in a cell or to be quiet for many, many years. And they came out as the protagonist, a changed individual, a changed person. And so, I'd just be curious on, what some of your listeners have experienced by just simply slowing down, being still, and being quiet and allowing. I love what you said. Anyways, continue your thought.
No, I think this is phenomenal. Anytime you take time to be with yourself, a lot of times it's in your journaling. I like to ponder with a pen in hand. It's almost like I wrote a book about pen in hand. Oh, wait, I did. So it's this idea of value-driven storytelling. And it's something that every single one of us have the opportunity to write our story and to change our ideas based on how valuable those experiences are. But if we keep those stories to ourselves, we're not willing to go there, man, we don't get to bless other people's lives.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Jeff, you've had amazing stories happen with all these different people, but if you kept those to yourself, I don't think you'd be able to inspire as many people. But because you're so willing to serve and in the stillness say, you know what, I'm going to write from my mind to my heart all the different things that God's putting in my head. It's almost like you can have a download of the things that can help other people. God will use us in any way that we're willing to have that open hand.
Mm-hmm.
I always, every single day, I actually have this in my standard operating procedures. I look for the hand of God in my life. If you look hard enough, you'll be able to notice. But God's really good at staying in the shadows of our life and being anonymous. That's just his way of saying, you know what, I love you, even if you don't notice. I'm here for you, even when you aren't paying attention. And when you do pay attention, thanks for noticing.
Yeah. I love that. Absolutely. And here's the irony, Brigham. I have 2 books. I have a third one, on its way. And people are like, Griff, this was good. This was a good book. And, I wrote it myself. I wrote the second one myself and the third one myself. And in 6th grade, I got a D- in English. I was horrible at reading and writing. I hated English. It was so tough for me. It wasn't until, and then my high school teacher said, Griff, you'll never be able to write a comprehensive sentence in your life. And all that was validated my freshman year in college when I showed up and they asked me, there was 300 of us in the auditorium and they asked us to write a paragraph. I wrote my paragraph and in the next class period, they called 6 of us to the back of the auditorium. I go bounding to the back and I'm like, hey, what'd I win? And they're like, you want a date with the remedial English teacher? I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, that's exactly why you need it. But this freshman English teacher, he taught me how to get my thoughts out on paper. And again, going back to this principle of just doing something and starting something. And just by writing my story, it took me 10 years though, Brigham. It took me 10 years to overcome the bad programming and the confidence to put it out there. And so I'm saying, please don't wait 10 years. Did I say 10 minutes? It took me 10 years to get that out there. And so don't wait 10 years to get your story out to the world, because the world needs to hear your story. It truly does.
I think that's exactly why I do what I do. And I'm so grateful for you to bring that up. So many people are just crippled because they're not willing to put their story out there. In any conversation, if you focus all on yourself, it's all about you, you're missing the boat with your story. Just like what you said earlier, Jeff, our arrows are out. If we are outward focused, saying, this is not me writing my story for me, I'm writing it for future generations. I'm writing it so that people can have this experience, be able to be avoided for them, whether it's a warning or it's an inspirational story that allows them to go and say, hey, I want to be like that too. I want to be able to be you said it was number 6, right? In free throws in the nation.
Number 5.
No, number 5. Oh, sorry. In the world.
Number 5 in the world.
Oh, that's amazing. Number
Don't handcuff
5 in
me.
the world.
Don't handcuff me, Brigham.
Number 5 in the world. This is amazing. And it's coming down to your righteous routines, your daily disciplines that really drive home success. Very inspired by the amazing things that you're talking about. Getting your story out on paper, whether you come and use my services, guys, or not, take the time to write out your story and go through those significant moments of your life. Translate it in a way that allows your audience to know why it's important. Be objective and focused in what you're sharing, and then relive that story and give them a clear call to action. Yes, I can do this. That's my story framework. You want more of that? Get the book, 3 Reasons Stage Fright, Costs and Why You Must Fix It. I go into depth there. I really want to make sure that we can equip you to be the very best versions of yourself. Jeff, thank you so much. I am just honored to be on the stage with you. I'm sure this will not be the last time that we talk. I'm so grateful for what you are, who you do, what you are. We can word here, but I'm so thankful for you, man. It was a great conversation, and just thanks for being all the things. I'm grateful.
You betcha.
Thank you,
awesome.
Man. Thank you so much. Guys, go out there, level up your life, reach out. We're here to serve. God bless.